Hello and welcome to our Insights podcast. I'm Leon Herzon, CEO of Value Edge Group and your host. I'm very excited to have with me David Roderick. He is an accomplished writer, movie director, and musician as well. A lot of stuff. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. How are you, Leon?
I'm all good. So let me start with something that I was very impressed. I just learned that you won over 30 international festival awards for your screenplay, No Olvidado, Not Forgotten. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's such
Thank
an
you.
accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you very much. I feel very lucky and blessed at this juncture in my life that somebody recognized something that I'm trying to do.
Can you tell a little bit more about this screenplay?
Yeah, I mean,
Just
No
so our
Olvidado.
viewers understand.
Yeah, No Olvidado came out of it's a true story, but it's fictionalized. Came out of an experience that I had with NBC when I was working for the documentary unit. We went down into Mexico and embedded with a group of with a coyote and a group of migrants to be able to tell that story. I went down there with a preconceived notion about what to expect, thinking I was going to see the worst, and to some degree we did. But at the same time, I really was just completely blown away and humbled by the efforts and the passion of some of these people just to find a better life. So No Olvidado is a version of that. It's a story that it recounts my experience in Mexico, which was, as I said, daunting because we got held up at gunpoint in the mountains.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was pretty dicey at one point. I've been in the military, but when you're not with a weapon, it's a little bit different, and when you're not with a unit. So I decided to tell this story years later and created 5 characters who all have investments in why they want to cross the border, and their lives kind of collide at the border. But it is really not about so much the border and the politics of the border. It's really about all of us, our desires to have a better life, to find a better way. And that's the discovery, in No Olvidado. And No Olvidado came from when we were there were places where we would, when we were in the desert, there would just be patches of suddenly you'd come upon all these crosses, and on these crosses it would say No Olvidado. And these were migrants who had not made it, but because they either don't have identification or they're caught in between, their colleagues or their peers would bury them there. So you could come upon these potter's cemeteries, and they all had this No Olvidado on it. So I thought, it was very hair raising to see it and to be around it, that somebody was left there. And so No Olvidado is a way of saying you're not going to be forgotten, that you will be remembered. So, but I'm excited about it. It's a hard picture to push to the studios. I have a dear friend at Warner Brothers who was actually a former student, Pamela Abdi, who's CEO of Warner Brothers. And her and I met over at Warner Brothers. And there was concern that, not necessarily concern that Warner's wants to do $300 million pictures. This is obviously not a $300 million picture. Barbie is. This is more of an indie, an art film. So we're trying to find the right producers in the right studio to do this. But it's a little bit of a journey. It's certainly put some gray hairs on my beard.
and you're dealing with the human side of things that is so important nowadays, where people sometimes lose sight.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, thank you for doing that. Okay, so you came from a very rich background in television production, media, and now you're leading IAL Media. How was your transition from the traditional broadcast to a corporate in digital media? That's
Uh,
been used to train people and to improve people's skills. Tell us more about your journey.
yeah, well, just the short end of it is that my background was in primarily when I was in television was directing and producing, and then working primarily in documentary. So I was used to sort of dealing with real issues and taking real issues and translating them to an audience to inform them and educate them. It was also about narrative storytelling. And I've always loved the idea of story. Even as a kid, I was just always loved, telling stories, being around stories, listening to my grandfather's stories, that kind of thing. So the transition really wasn't as dramatic as you would have thought, because I think what gave me a little bit of of an asset here is that I came from a storytelling background. And I believed when I came into the corporate world that storytelling was important, that through story, through character, through case studies, that I could help to educate. Now, in television, it's about informing people about issues.
Mhm.
It's about information, and it's not so much about changing hearts and minds. You hope you do, but that's not the primary interest. When I came into the corporate world, also because I came out of academia as well, I'd spent some time as an artist in residence at Emerson teaching. So I knew that the stuff or the material that I was going to produce here was going to be more about changing hearts and minds, but also about educating, about getting results, about solving problems. So all I did was take the paradigm from television, uh, three acts, narrative, storytelling, and placed it in the world of the corporate world. And again, it's not so much different. I mean, the results are a little bit different. You're always looking for, either a value add at the end of a corporate piece, or looking to have people walk away and learn something. So again, I just took that paradigm, placed it here, and found that it worked. And I found the most engaging pieces that I've ever done here all involve either case studies or narratives about practical application, about a process, whether it's agile or whatever it is. With regard to project management, I mean, you might recall Keeping Score, Frank Ryle's piece. It was rather long, and I think at that point I still had a little bit of the dust of television still on me, so I was thinking I was doing a long form piece. I think it was too long, but it was a story about these two golf players, and we took Frank Ryle's methodology, which was nine principles of project management, and placed
Nine
them
holes.
in nine holes of golf. I thought that was brilliant. I thought he was brilliant to come up with that idea. But the fact that we were able to incorporate that and to go onto a golf course and to put two guys together that are just friends playing golf, and at the same time explaining these principles, it was magic. I still think that was a great piece. I think we should cut it down and continue to use it. But that's an example of what I mean, that I don't think that it's such a huge jump. There is a little bit of an education process, because I think the corporate world has a little bit more of a stoic impression, or doesn't completely understand media or how to use it. And so some of this new world for me is about educating corporate folks about how to use media, how to use it effectively, that sort of thing.
Let me connect what you just said. The corporate mindset, that shift. And I remember when we were talking at some time about storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
that we in the past we learned through stories
Yes.
and how powerful that is.
Mm-hmm.
You can show slides, you can show concepts. When you tell a story, then you have that easily absorbed by people. Do you think is a challenge today to have corporations embracing this mindset shift from more stoic, more, okay, that's the concept, that's how we do it, that's the tool. And then you come and say, well, let's bring a story that connects all the stuff, like the example you just gave about keeping score, right? What is the challenge that you think you face when you try to sell that idea to corporations?
Well, good question. I think there are a couple of factors. One is the either misinformation or the lack of understanding about what media production is and what it takes. People come to the table with the idea that it's Hollywood, that everything is going to be big and expensive. And that's not true. That might have been true years ago in corporate and training films, or industrials, they used to call them. It isn't the case now. The technology has been, I say, dumbed down enough so that anybody can use it, and it's not as expensive. But part of it is getting past that. The other part is getting people to get to think outside of the box, and that's difficult in dealing with corporate folks. Very often their concerns are the bottom line. How much money are we spending? How much time? How much resources? And the creative process needs a little bit more flexibility. So my challenge has been finding a way to communicate with corporate folks so that they're not one feeling like, ooh, who is he, or that they're thinking that I'm, an artist. And the creative part is making them nervous because I'm asking them to trust. I'm asking them to try, and, it's not, it's changed to some degree, but there still are corporations and people in power, stakeholders who aren't necessarily as open-minded to it. So the challenge is always being able to convince and to sell. So, Laverne Johnson always says we're all salespeople, and we are. I have to sell them on the idea that this will benefit them, that this is a solution. I try to use analogies and metaphors to say, when you watch a movie, you're engaged and you want to know if the protagonist is going to win. We want to know whether you're going to win, whether the company's going to win. We want to know the story. We want to follow the characters. And it doesn't mean that it has to be an hour-long documentary. It can be a 30-second piece. So I'm always thinking of, how do I get to the end of this piece and inform, educate, train, and have people still involved and captivated. But that's a big challenge is getting past, like you say, mindsets that still aren't quite there. A lot of young people are there, but they're there a little too fast, and they come without the sort of ethics sometimes and considerations that some of us older folks have because we've lived a little bit longer.
So let's talk about fast, and let's talk about AI.
Yeah.
Right. With the rise of AI, generative video, and OpenAI just launched Sora 2, which creates some mind-boggling videos and etc. And there is some concern, right, on the quality and what is being produced. What do you think remains unique to humans in the media production? Because this thing is going so fast, and you have that experience. You're using AI as well. So that was your perspective. What remains human
Well,
with this AI?
What remains human is us, is our DNA and our journey, our life experience. I always say we are the sum total of our DNA, our life choices, and our experiences. AI doesn't have that, and it maybe it will at some point or another, but it doesn't. And what's important is the fact that you and I bring those qualities to the choices that we make. And so the nervousness that I have is that this shiny new object is a distraction to some degree, and is distracting some people especially some people that are eager to get there quicker for the wrong reasons, down the road without the ethics that I think are important. I always say with any new technology, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly part of it. The good part is that, wow, isn't this amazing in health and how we can do certain techniques and certain research and innovations in healthcare, and also innovations in education. I mean, there isn't anywhere that AI can't be a positive for that particular aspect of industry. In my industry, yes, it's great to be able to move down the road quicker, to create characters, to create avatars, and to be able to edit quicker, faster. It's agile. That's the good part of it. The bad part of it is that it eliminates some jobs. And that it displaces some people. There are editors who are being phased out because AI can do that. It can edit. There are animators who have been put out of work. I saw it in music when the first synthesizers came in, and synthesizers displaced. The day that I saw that happen, and it shook me up. We were in a studio doing a soundtrack for a film, and the director just was upset because we couldn't get it. The musicians, they had violin players, they were string players. There were half a dozen of them, just weren't getting it quick enough. At some point or another, they made the decision that they would bring in something called a mellotron, which is a synthesizer. Basically, it was music samples. It was violins in a can, and when those musicians saw that mellotron being rolled in, and at the time those instruments were huge, so it looked like a coffin coming in. It did. It's so I mean, I wish I had a camera. And these violin players older gentlemen started putting away their violins, and they said, it's here, because they knew, and that was symbolic. Now, the difference is that mellotron and those synthesizers could emulate sound, but they couldn't emulate the experience. They couldn't give you the nuances that come with, what am I feeling when I play
emotion,
this? Yeah. All the emotions were gone. So it was a clean sound. If it said C minor, it's C minor. Now, AI is in that same vein, is what's going on with the AI. And the difficulties that I have with it is that it doesn't understand those human experiences and those nuances. AI doesn't know about falling in love and about the pain of falling out of love. It doesn't know.
It knows conceptually. It doesn't feel.
Yeah, that's it. You got it. It doesn't feel. And the problem is that some people are in such a rush to use it, and to use it in such a way that they don't bother to consider those aspects of it. And so the information, visual information that comes out, is kind of, biased. So that's the bad part of it. The ugly part of it is fake videos. I see hundreds of these videos now on YouTube, and they're all about animals tearing up people, and there was one recently, unfortunately, I'm not going to mention a name where it came from, of defecation, we'll say, crap, falling on the heads of protesters. And it was put on. I mean, everybody knew it was fake, but the fact of it is that it's unethical, and that's the real ugly part of it. So to me, it isn't so much that we need to learn the technology, because most young people in particular, and most techies can learn this at the snap. I mean, it's not that. It's reminding us, that there's a human element to this, that there's a soul, that there's a heart, and that there's ethics. So it's like giving somebody a car, a sports car that can do 200 miles an hour, and somebody can get into that car and drive it, but do they know the ethics of the road? Do they understand, right from wrong? And that's a very simple analogy, but that's
a great analogy.
What's going on with AI is that you've got to understand the human part of it. And, I was thinking, when we were talking about doing this, if you were to go to Gandhi or to Martin Luther King and ask them about AI now, what would they say? And I thought about it, and I said, Gandhi would probably say, what will it do for the poor? And I'm sure Martin Luther King would say the same thing. What is it going to do for those who don't have equality? Those kinds of concerns are so important, I think, in terms of those people who are at the helm of AI. If they have that kind of thinking, then we're safe. If they don't, if they're all they're thinking about is money and getting stuff done faster and quicker and producing more, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you mentioned several times ethics. For any person who is out there, like with my podcast, people see my videos, get my voice. They can change this thing and create crazy videos and
Yes.
etc. So it's a complete lack of ethics, but it's possible. And by the way, for our viewers, if you see something very strange, a video very strange about me, it's not me, okay? So you guys know about that. All right, very good. So let's move forward here to production.
Yeah.
So production, when you are producing whatever piece you are, you have ambiguity, you have very tight deadlines, you have stakeholders with different perspectives, technology challenges. Can you share a story, a real one? You don't need to give me the details of a significant production challenge, and how did you overcome that?
What, using AI?
Any type of challenge that you face when you're doing production could be related to any of those elements. Could be AI, could be stakeholders, could be the deadline, whatever it is.
Well, it's interesting because the thing about production is if anything's going to go wrong, it will go wrong. So
Murphy's Law.
Yeah, it's definitely the case in production. You can plan and plan and plan and figure that you're going to be okay. No way. You could say we're going to shoot tomorrow up on Madison Avenue and 51st, and it'll rain, or there'll be a construction crew, or somebody will be sick, or equipment will break down. Those are the production ends of it. And there are so many things that just are possibilities that can happen. So you're never going to have a perfect production. You're dealing with actors, you're dealing with temperament. Hopefully you've cast the right people. But at the same time, there may be things that you have to go through with actors over and over again so that they not just read the words or say the words, that they internalize them, that they understand that you are conveying to them enough information so that they understand the context of what they're trying to do with this character. So there are so many things. And in the corporate world, it's a little bit scary because usually the stakeholders are holding you real tight. They hang around you a lot. Whereas, I'm used to at NBC, people began to trust you enough that they said, David can go to Mexico and we don't have to send a watchdog with him to make sure he's not going over budget. But in corporate world, you've got a lot of stakeholders that want to know what's going on constantly, either because they know or don't know, or they have their own set of concerns. So you're always addressing and juggling that stuff as well. Timelines are more critical here because, I'm dealing with big budgets, projects, training pieces that need to be turned out. Did you meet the needs? Then the process is a little bit different in that because there are so many stakeholders, you have to please so many people. There's so many opinions, and I'll send a piece out to be reviewed, and it'll be reviewed by almost a committee. And everybody has, I like blue, you like green. And so I've tried to sort of educate people that I need objective opinions, not subjective. But you get a lot of subjective stuff. Well, gee, that music seemed a little bit loud. I don't like that kind of music. Or why did they have that on? Or why did they say it this way? There's a lot of variables that go on in production that you have to manage, and and then throwing in the AI piece of it, now that we've got AI, an example of something that came up, which I won't mention names, but we were shooting a piece with a host, and they, read the script, and they were from out of town, and we thought we had it right. And then when they left, we discovered that, oops, they missed several words. And the option would have been before either have them come back, which is costly, or let's record it, virtually and put it in. And the sound quality is going to be a little bit different. It's never, the ambiance isn't quite the same. Or AI, so because I'm trying to be ethical about it, I called up the talent and said, listen, would you mind if we used your voice, but we replicated your voice with AI, which I think is important. I think you just can't make assumptions and put stuff in and not tell people, because that's really deeply intimate. Even though it's our script, it was still her words and her voice. She agreed, and we did that. It was seamless. You couldn't even tell that it was her. There was a change in her voice, and
also scary, right?
It was very scary. It was very scary because the idea that says, and which is where we're at now, I don't need her anymore. And again, I don't want to give away the secret, secret sauce, but we're working with an avatar AI that I've created that will be the host of a whole program. So and that's a project that takes a huge amount of time because AI isn't as brilliant as people think it is. One, it forgets, it changes things, it has a short-term memory, it doesn't speak well. So if you're asking it to emulate a voice, it doesn't have all the nuances of how you and I talk.
Yeah, the human voice.
No, it doesn't. But I've kind of been working on a way to get it there. And part of it is take a script, put additional spaces where I need more of a pause, put more punctuation, capitalize words where I want emphasis, put an exclamation point after certain points. So you play around with the grammar enough. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. But, I don't know if you remember, in fact, it wasn't great, but the piece that I did, which is going to run again, called the Human Touch in the Age of AI, which I used. Those were all avatars. The Asian gentleman who I created to be the narrator. The introduction was an avatar and also AI, but it took weeks, really weeks, to get them to sound like and to move the right way, because AIs will suddenly, I thought everything was okay. And then I looked at the picture and realized that the guy had 6 fingers on one hand. And I said, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah. Hey, we have to talk offline. I'm going to talk with you offline about this stuff. It's fascinating. So let's get to another element based on your experience, because you have been working, David, in many different regions of the world. You have contact with different cultures. What do you think are the interpersonal skills that media leaders, production managers must have to work in different cultures, in different geographies around the globe?
Well, I think, and I have been really blessed in that I have had this wonderful opportunity to travel and to who would have ever thunk, so to speak, that I would have had this opportunity, but I got a lot of it through television and traveling on projects and film. I always wanted to travel, and I sort of always saw myself as an adventurer, an explorer. Even as a kid, I remember, when I was about 10 years old, 11 years old, there was a steeple to a church, to a tower that was probably about 4 or 5 miles away. But I would always see it, and I would wonder, I'd say, that's a castle. That's a castle, and I want to go there. and I couldn't get my dad to take me, or my mom. So I decided one Saturday just to pack up and go. I got totally, totally, totally lost. But that was an amazing adventure to get to that castle. I just followed it because also, because it was in the distance. When I went down into valleys, I couldn't see it anymore. So I got nervous and said, "Oh, geez." And then when I got there, I couldn't see my house to get home.
Oh, so how I go back now?
I didn't know how to go back. So they actually had to get the
No cell phones at the
no
time.
cell phones, no anything. It was just like screaming and yelling, "Help me, I'm lost." I want to go
Oh
home.
boy.
But so I've always been on this sort of adventure. So I've been very lucky to be able to spend time in Africa, and I lived in China, for several years, which I love China. Not politically, but I love the culture itself. I've spent time in Europe, and so I've had this blessed opportunity to be around, and I think because of that, it has given me a sense that the world is bigger than just New York City or the United States. And it has opened my mind to possibilities and to understanding other cultures. I love the idea that I can learn from other people. And I think the key is you have to, one, be humble and open.
Humble and open.
If you're not open, if you go with a sense of arrogance that, hey, I'm from the West and therefore blah, 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 even though that is no longer the case, because we're, now being from the West can have its downsides to it. People sort of see us as arrogant, and whatever. But I think you have to be open. So my opportunities to learn from other people was this idea that I was curious. I had a lot of curiosity. And I think if you're curious and you approach it, one, humble and being curious, you'll be amazed at what you can learn from other people. And once you get this idea that a concept that I sort of came up with, and that is that we are all a part of the same DNA, whether we think so or not. I used to tell people in my class, white students who freaked out when they heard it, I said, I don't care whether you like it or not, you're African American. and they said, well, I'm not African American. I said, you are. You don't necessarily look like me, but you are African American because life began on the continent of Africa. So all of us originally came out of there, whether we changed or became something else. And if you understand this concept of being part of the whole, there's an English poet that I love, John Donne, or he's not a poet, he's actually a pastor, but he wrote a poem, became a poem called No Man is an Island. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I love it because it's so applicable to so many things, and the couple of lines that are key are, if a pebble washes away from Europe, then Europe is the less. Meaning that a pebble on a beach, a grain of sand, if it washes away from Europe, then Europe is the less. If you think of that in the concept of humanity and of this earth and of the universe, that we are all a part of the whole, so that when any one of us is gone or doesn't get to do their thing or to make a contribution, we're all diminished, whether we know them or not. That's just my belief. So I think when I'm in Africa and I'm thinking that these people who are being diminished, or I'm in China or I'm in Brazil or wherever it is, and I'm thinking that people haven't had the opportunity to become or to be realized, there's nothing worse than being unrealized potential. Then I say, I'm diminished. Even if I don't know you, I'm diminished as a result of that. So I think it's really important. And I think corporate folks, if they could get out of their silos and understand this idea of unity, of working together, of companies with synergy that isn't just about money, that it's about helping. It's about the way that we interconnect and realize that nature realizes that, I have a place upstate, and when I first moved up there, there were always bats in the evening flying around, in the air. And I was fascinated with the idea that, I said, wow, all these bats, and that was the first year I moved there. The second year, Leon, that I was there, there was nothing in the sky. And I asked my neighbor, who was a farmer, I said, what's going on? What happened? He said, the bats have been dying off because of this, what do they call it, gray nose or something, virus had killed off all these bats. Now, if you kill off the bats, the reason that they're flying around in the night or the evening night, they're cleaning the air. They're killing insects. And the minute that the bats were gone, we had a mosquito problem.
Look at that.
Because now the mosquitoes were back because the bats had been, eating them when they were flying around. So there's this interconnectedness that says the bats are gone, the mosquitoes come back. Honeybees are gone, no more pollination, flowers, things change. If we think of ourselves as human beings and we're not connected with what's going on in Africa, or we're not connected to what's going on in Europe or in China or in Asia, and we're not a large global community, the world is destined to, fall apart, I think.
Yeah, so humble and be open to learn.
Yes, and be curious.
Key elements. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That was very insightful. Do you see parallels between project managers? A lot of our viewers here, they're project program portfolio managers, not all of them. But do you see parallel between being a project manager and a media creator?
Yes. I mean, it's absolutely the same. I mean, I'm of the belief, and the thing that I learned to acknowledge in working with IIL is that we are all project managers. Even somebody who's working at home, a mother, a father, everybody's managing some level of project. Their stakeholders, all of the stuff, the same stuff in project management applies. I never thought of it in that way, but when I realized it, I said, there are stakeholders, and I'm dealing with timelines. I'm dealing with budgets. I'm dealing with risk, on a film. All of those things apply. I just I never put the terminology to it. And I think that most of us don't, as I say, if I went to a homemaker and said, do you think of yourself as a project manager? They would probably say, what are you talking about? But if I explained it to them, I'm sure they would say, I deal with budgets. I'm dealing with risk. I'm dealing with stakeholders. My husband or my wife is a stakeholder,
And let me tell you, I attended a few years ago a Global Executive Council from PMI in LA. And we visited a studio. And there was one producer who was sharing what she does. Man, those guys know how to manage a project.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. It is insane.
Yeah.
It is just insane. I saw the amount. We never realize when you're just watching the show or watching something like that, what is behind all those things that we learn from project management. They're all there, and they're dealing with sometimes way more than any other project manager that I saw. That was quite impressive.
Yeah. When I was, it's still under the same kind of stresses and pressures. But when I was in television, especially in news, it was, considered one of the most stressful jobs aside from air traffic controllers, because of the deadlines, because of the accuracy that you had to be in, a particularly.
Yeah, you go live in 1 hour. That's it. Yeah. There's no option, right?
No, you don't have an option. You're sitting there and you're writing and you're trying to produce this piece, and they give you so many stories to work on. And you might have, when I was at MSNBC, I would be writing 2 or 3 domestic stories, and also had to coordinate 3 or 4 location stories. At the time we were in Iraq. So I had Mike Taibbi here and Ashley Banfield over here and so over there. And you've got to coordinate with them in terms of what are they doing. And they want to know, okay, well, I'm going to have this video here. So now you've got to edit the video. You've got to work with the editor to get that up. At the same time, you're still working on those stories. And then the phone starts ringing when you get close to airtime, and the line producer calls and said, "Are you going to have that story for Block C?"
Yeah, it's a breaking news. You have to add stuff.
Or something else happened, and you start sweating. And I could tell you there were a lot of people who burnt out at that news desk because the pressure. And I was on an ungodly shift at the time when they dissolved the documentary unit. And they said, "David, we want to keep you, so we're going to put you in news." I said, "Oh, no, this is the worst place for me to be." But I was on a shift from 3 o'clock in the morning till 12 noon.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to drive down in the morning. I mean, it was horrible. Just even the sleep part of it was terrible. But then getting there, and then, when you're a couple of hours out, you're starting to feel the pressure. And we had two terms that we would say to one another. There would be, 8 of us or something working on the morning news, the 12 o'clock news. And we would, if you got into trouble, you would say, "I'm slammed." And you would yell that out to the table. "I'm slammed." And hopefully somebody will jump in and say, "I'll grab one of your stories." Then if nobody does anything and you're still writing, and it's down to getting a phone call from the news desk that says, from the control room that says, "Where's the story? We'll move it, but you got to have it." The next thing you say is, "I'm crashing."
Oh, wow.
And when you say, "I'm crashing," hopefully somebody says, "I'll take that story. I'll take this story," and helps. But there have been times when I say, "I'm crashing. I'm crashing," and nobody's responding. And I realize I'm really crashing because I'm not going to get these stories done. So now the producer has to say, "Cut that story."
We're approaching the end here,
Yeah.
but I want to ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah.
The first one, I know it's not an easy task to think about 3 to 5 years, AI, where you see we're going to be in 3 to 5 years, considering what's out there on AI in media production and everything else.
I think, and just my speculation, there, it's the road less traveled or the road traveled. We can do great things if we get ourselves together as people and understand, how to use AI responsibly and ethically. We can do great things. So 3 to 5 years in production, I won't be sitting here, I'm sure. Writers might not be sitting there because some studios now are using AI to develop stories and to write scripts. I'm a little bit nervous about that. I won't give AI the opportunity to write any of my scripts at this point. I'm still holding on to that, or to play my trumpet or to do any of that stuff. But I do see that could be an avenue that opens up. So I think it could be great and effective because it'll be more quicker, faster, that kind of thing, agile. I also, though, worry that if we don't sort of get our heads screwed on the right way and we're continue to be so reckless, because the downside to the cell phone is that there's a whole culture of young people who have grown up on cell phones. They have very little communication skills. I don't want to accuse all. There's difficulties in communicating, in writing, all these skills that we've learned and that were important to some degree, interaction, are going by the wayside, and people don't connect. And I think when you disconnect from people, then when we were talking about that other business about how do you relate to other people, there won't be any relationship because people won't know how to relate. So I don't know. It's a hard question to answer.
I know. That's why I ask you.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm not the guru.
So here's, before I let you go, 1 or 2 books that were instrumental for you in your entire career that you would recommend to our viewers.
There's a couple of books, but they're not going to be the kind of books that you would think. I'm not a believer. I don't read books, a lot of technical books, because I just have this aptitude to figure stuff out.
Any book, David, any book.
The books that I actually find important and I would recommend to anybody, there are 2 books. Well, there are a couple, bunch of them. One is by a Lebanese poet by the name of Kahlil Gibran. It's called The Prophet. And I say that because, again, I'm not worried about somebody knowing how to drive the car. It's, again, about the ethics. Kahlil Gibran's book, The Prophet, talks about the way to live life. And it's not a religious book. It's just a philosophy book. It's a story written about a man on his journey. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I find that to be a really great book to ground me, because if I can take that information and put it into this, then I know my pieces are going to be right on. I know my relationships are going to be right on. So I would recommend Gibran's book, The Prophet, as one book. There is another book which is a novel, and it deals with it's Thomas Wolfe. You Can Never Go Home Again. Have you ever heard of it? No. It's a wonderful book.
I'm going to read that.
And it kind of talks about not being able to go back to places and to return to places that we've already passed through. That's another piece of important history. So I read a lot of philosophy books, a lot of...
that's great.
Because, again, I'm never worried about the technical part of driving. I'm worried more about the ethics of what's right and wrong, and keeping myself grounded in that way. And so I'm somebody that will say, hey, I'll even read the Bible. I'll read the Quran, if to get me the kind of information to say, this is how I'm supposed to, live my life. This is how I'm supposed to deal with people. So those would be books. One other book is I know it sounds like we're on a religious hour here, but is called Care of the Soul by Thomas, I think Thomas More is his name. He's a psychologist. And his book, Care of the Soul, is wonderful because it really focuses on, especially now, the need that we all have to get instantaneous gratification, or to fix everything, or to know everything quickly. And he says that there is information, that there are things that are going on in our souls, in our spirits, that are messages that are being said, hey, I need you to care about me. You hear it, it'll say, Leon, I need you to stop and take care of my soul, take care of me. And it can show up in terms of physical symptoms and mental symptoms, but sometimes those messages aren't really manifestations of disease. They're really manifestations of your mind, body, soul saying, time for you to take care of me.
Oh, well, that's... David, I think we have to schedule another conversation. There's so much to catch up.
Yeah.
Anyway, final words to our viewers here before I let you go. What would be a final message, something that you would like to say to our viewers?
I would like to say, have many, many, many days of wonderful. Remain curious. Be open to going to places that you have never been. Be open to learning about people you have never met and hearing their stories that you have never met. And in closing, I would say I wrote something, and I give it to my colleagues and young colleagues, and it says, and it's a guy looking over the edge of a cliff. And I wrote underneath it that says, in order to achieve anything extraordinary, one has to get out of their comfort zone and take risks to see and go places and do things that other people won't, and then come back and tell them where you've been.
David, thank you so much. Really appreciate our chat.
Thank you, brother.
Look forward for the next time we chat.
For sure. Thank you so much, Leon. Have a good one.
You too.